but I did. Didn't I message you? I said I loved it.
Oh, no, I don't
Sorry.
remember.
All right, call the meeting to order.
I love it. Yeah.
Sarah, can you do roll call, please?
Absolutely. Lloyd Grotchek,
Here.
Laura Greenlee Carp,
Here.
Dave Andren, Ben Hansen,
Here.
Ingrid Kohler,
Here.
Sue Springborn,
Here.
Sarah Zaradka,
Here?
Cassidy Schwer.
We have a quorum.
Right.
Motion to adopt the agenda.
Make a motion.
Dave makes a motion, second.
I'll second.
Ingrid.
10 seconds? Okay, Ingrid's got it. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Approval of the minutes, June 26th.
I make a motion.
Dave makes a motion, second.
I second it.
Sue seconds, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Open to the public. Do we have Zoom anymore? No. Okay. Anybody from the public? All right. I've been asked by Sarah to read an email from a constituent, and I will just read it right now. I moved to North St. Paul almost 3 years ago and live near the Southwood Nature Preserve. I work from home and take a daily walk through the park, which used to be a pleasure and now comes with considerable stress. Last year, I started noticing that many turtles were being run over as they tried to cross Holloway Avenue. I had been emailing with the folks on the North St. Paul City Council, including the mayor and city manager, although no one has responded to my past several emails. I have also been exchanging emails with a wildlife ecologist with the Department of Transportation. He told me that about the Herp Mapper app, which is a way to track these high fatality areas where wildlife collide with humankind. This ecologist said that 70 to 100 turtles deaths would be above average in a given year. I only learned about that app last September, and by the time November came, I had counted 66 dead turtles. This year, I have already counted 35 dead turtles and was able to help two cross the road safely. There are turtle crossing signs, but per another contact I made at the DOT, drivers have habituated to these signs, and they aren't really useful. Potential options I have suggested to the North St. Paul City Council include changing the speed limit in that area from 30 to 20, painting large turtle crossing signs on the actual road like they do for the school crossings, installing bigger turtle signs, not having the turtles signs be up year-round but just during the active season, or having an educational campaign to alert drivers to please pay attention. The wildlife ecologist shared that the gold standard solution would be to install a turtle tunnel. I believe one was installed outside of Stillwater several years back to some great success. Funding is the issue. Along with visibility to this matter, I know there is so much going on in the world right now, so why focus on some dumb old turtles? I don't know, but it's really captured my heart, and I am so sad to see all of these poor smashed bodies in the road so often. Is there anything that Park and Recs can do to help? Want me to read the address? What's the protocol?
Yeah.
Sarah Bosley, 2093 Charles Street, North St. Paul. I'll pass it around to everybody while we're having the meeting.
Has she had any response yet from anybody?
I have talked to her briefly a couple of times. As far as from council, I'm not positive.
I can speak to that.
Yeah.
Yes, we have spoken to her.
Okay.
She has received answers back from us, both from Public Works and Council and City Manager. That's why I can speak to.
Yeah, okay. So, but she hasn't responded back to those? Or-
She has responded back to them, and,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, all right.
Is that road at like a dual maintenance, Maplewood? Would be
County
Maplewood.
road.
Maplewood and North St. Paul? Or is that a county road?
County.
County road?
DNR's been contacted too.
Okay.
You know, she's right. People become habituated to signs like that. And a temporary sign during the highest season or, you know, highest turtle crossing season might be something to, you know, a temporary sign or maybe even yard signs. Like, for example, I noticed at Silver Lake, some hours are now posted in the park. And I want to talk about that later. But anyway, just something, she's right. People don't notice the signs anymore. And, you know, if, I don't know. Obviously, I think funding doesn't allow for creating a tunnel under the road. But maybe during a particular month, we put out some yard signs and that might alert people a little bit. Or maybe a real sign that goes up 2 months of the year or something. I don't know. I don't know how long that season is, but.
Anybody else?
Sounds like it's been shared with all of the people that it needs to be shared with to make decisions around it. And it sounds like it's outside of the Parks Commission control.
Okay. All right, let's move on to A. I got Trig and, don't tell me, Noah. Yes. I was gonna say Jonah, but then I thought, nope. Do we go whale or ark? Is this gonna like pop up somewhere? Need to hit power or anything. Is he doing it up? Around this little guy.
He,
Hold on.
he knows. He's working, he's working
Just,
on
just,
it.
just,
He's working on it.
here we go. I got it under control.
Well, maybe I'll start while we're waiting for it to come up. My name's Trig Hansen. I'm a landscape architect with HGA Architecture from out of Minneapolis. We're a national firm, architecture, planning, and engineering firm. And we respond, this is,
Hi, I'm Noax. I'm again, also with HGA.
yeah, and we responded to, and I'm speaking to some that may know about this, others that may not. Sweet. We responded to a request for proposals to study and plan and do some conceptual design for 3 of the North St. Paul parks. This was in late February, I believe, and we submitted a proposal. We interviewed and we were awarded the project in April. As y'all aware, there's been some staff changes, and recently, with Riley on board, HGA, we've got a contract going to study 3 North St. Paul parks. And there's myself on the left. Other key members on the project beside Noah and myself are Kent Hipp, he's another landscape architect, and Caitlin Shallow, she is with Noah, does phenomenal work with equity and engagement on our projects and in the communities that we work with. And one of the primary focuses that we learned on the project, I'm just going to back up, is that why HGA's team was selected to do this work is our emphasis and passion and expertise on bringing projects like this out into the community and soliciting a breadth of community engagement in equal manner. So Noah's going to talk about the status of the engagement that we're planning for the project. I'm going to give a quick overview and status of the project. We just came out of kind of a second meeting on this project right before it, so apologies to those who have, are more informed on the project than others. The three parks that are part of the project are the McKnight Athletic Complex, the to-be-developed Pocket Park is what, one of, or the downtown park at the corner of 7th there. The new kind of landscape space with the downtown road change that was developed, and then the passive park, which is the kind of forested area just to the east or west of downtown. All along, and I believe this is one of the topics that's going to be discussed at your meeting today, this has been in total concert with the efforts, I say concert, fully referenced by what's going on with the Parks and Open Space Master Plan. So this is a first wonderful step in implementing some level of the master plan moving forward. We're well aware and continuing the dialogue of the park values and the system goals that are highlighted. And the reason that we do, as Noah's going to talk about, a really strong equitable engagement process is that to vet and clarify and learn more about these park values and goals and learn more about the city and the people that the parks want to serve now and into the future, and learn about the stories of how they've worked in the past. Some of the original design thinking that we've shared and presented is how we can, these three parks have the opportunity to combine a whole host of different functions and opportunities, from civic to creating wild spaces and playful. And each one will vet out different opportunities. The scope of this project is, our project is a little bit messy diagram, but we're in this gray square, which is conceptual design, which includes programming and planning, and a large piece why I've started is this, as I mentioned, the community and stakeholder engagement. Noah will talk about some of the stuff that we've already done to date, but this kind of bar on the beginning third or quarter of the project scope is where we are today. We've had a few meetings, we've got a lot of information, talked with some stakeholders, and the next step is that we're going to be starting to lay out some initial conceptual designs and share those even further within the community and get responses. We've developed a pretty detailed schedule with the idea being that we can have conceptual design wrapped up before the Thanksgiving holiday. And throughout that process, we'll share it, obviously, with the project committee team, but at a couple more of the PRC meetings. These are some of the key dates as far as, and granted, some of this is old news because we learned some more information about some other engagement opportunities that we're probably going to work towards. Some of the upcoming engagement events are going to be the Autumn Art Fest and probably the Roundup Parade. Did I say that right? Roundup Days Parade? Because we learned through conversation that that's probably a better situation to get a more diverse and engaged response. So Noel can talk about the engagement that we're planning.
So when we first started this conversation in the project interview, one of the big things, like Trig was saying, was how are we going to develop an inclusive engagement strategy? This 6-step process is one that HJ uses. It's based on the International Association of Public Participation, which is something that's used by a lot of civic groups, and really working us towards, step by step, making sure that we're being intentional in this process. So to start out, the goals that we identified for why engagement is necessary for these projects is understanding the current usage and the stakeholder relationships to each of these sites. So we know kind of what's working, what's not, what to keep. And then the fact that North St. Paul is becoming denser and more diverse And if we're going to create parks that work for folks well into the future, we need to understand what that future community looks like and what those people need. Then we also, needed to kind of do a little bit of self-reflection and think about what can, the folks on the HGA team and the folks from the commission bring to the table in terms of our, experiences and knowledge bases, and what are some potential gaps in representation. And so, we think we might be missing some viewpoints from folks who, for example, are renting the new apartments downtown, people who are first or second generation immigrants, people of color, some of these other groups, teenagers, who are gonna have an interest in the outcome of this. And identifying then that those folks would be great as liaisons to the community, and kind of a community advisory board. So looking at this strategy here where the project team is the HGA design team, the Parks and Rec Commission members who are in our meetings, and the community development staff. That's kind of the core group that's making decisions, but outside of that is like the whole broader ecosystem of North St. Paul and everybody that these parks are gonna serve. So the liaisons, like I said, are folks where they've got a real stake in the outcome of this, and they've got a unique perspective that we might not be hearing otherwise. So we'll wanna have ongoing interactions with them. Then key stakeholders, so people who are gonna be highly impacted by these specific parks, and then the public. So we'll take all of that information and funnel it down to drive the decisions that are made here. We've already started some engagement. We did a workshop with some city leaders, folks from like the fire chief and folks from Public Works and Finance, to understand kind of how they see the city of North St. Paul, what are the strengths and what are the things that these parks can kind of help improve. We also did, and Trig gave this sheet to everybody who didn't get a chance to do it in a workshop, messages from the future activity of kind of dreaming big, right? Like, what are the things that when all of this is done, you want people to kind of be raving about for these parks? I'll summarize by just kind of laying out our engagement methods. This is kind of identifying these core groups, right? There's the core project team, the community liaisons, all of the people who are neighbors to each of these park sites, anybody else who's a stakeholder, and then the general public. And so really the point of this is looking at all of the different activities that we'll do. So pop-up events at community things, specific open houses to address each of these parks, and then our monthly meetings. And we're kind of getting a little bit more narrowed in as we move towards the right. So these bigger community events, everybody will be at. The general public might not show up to the Pocket Park open house if they don't have an investment in that park. That's fine, as long as we get the other stakeholders there. But then when it comes to the meetings, the community liaisons will be there for design conversations. And then the project team members meetings are gonna really be the core project team. So we're kind of, again, focusing in as we go.
Thank you, Noah. And as I mentioned, some of the immediate steps is we have a couple engagement opportunities that we're in the beginning of figuring out who's going to be there and what we're going to do. There's going to be HGA people. There's going to be PRC people. Is PRC okay to call Parks and Rec Commission? And Sarah, Laura, and Sue and I, and not Dan, Sarah, are beginning on coordinating of this. There would be opportunities for anyone else to be engaged, and we would encourage that not only the staff and the design team engage in these. And then also, we're going to be also at the same time developing our initial concepts. The design and engagement and planning phase is not completely linear. One thing doesn't go and then the next thing starts. They kind of overlap and then they'll circle back. So we've gained a lot of information just by becoming part of the community in this last month on meetings and some initial stakeholders. And we make initial moves where we do something and then it moves down and then we hear more and it kind of keeps going down. And so the end goal will be a concept or a series of concepts for each park. That gives a roadmap, and at some point, some higher level costs are going to be laid in here, some cost estimating, a roadmap of the fact that North St. Paul has identified that these 3 parks, who knows when exactly, these 3 parks are priorities, and the community and the team supporting it is ready to engage and move it on to the next level for the community. So, and HGA is extremely happy and excited to be part of this. Working on meaningful projects in the community is so rewarding, not only for us personally, but the joy and the outcomes that it brings the community where we live and each day is really meaningful, so. I don't know the exact process for something, question and answer, or?
Questions, open for questions.
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah.
When you do the pocket park open houses, how are people notified of those? Do you just kind of set up shop and hope that people who are there using the park come? Or how does that work?
Well, especially for something like this, right, where these parks don't really exist yet in the way that we're envisioning for them for the future, we have identified key stakeholders for each location and will be, in addition to general publicity. So the plan right now, for example, at the parade, is that we'll have something to hand out to folks with the dates for these open houses and say,
Oh, okay,
come to this,
great.
you know.
Yeah.
And then we'll also reach out to those stakeholders directly, right? So for McKnight, we're going to email folks from the school district and say, hey, we're going to talk about this, you should
Yeah,
come.
yeah.
And make sure that way people are getting a more specific invite if they have kind of a larger stake in the outcome.
Yeah, okay, great.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
You have mentioned key stakeholders.
Yes.
Tell me about key stakeholders and who
Yeah.
are these key stakeholders?
So key stakeholders, so what we did was we took kind of a matrix, like a 4-quadrant matrix, and on one axis is how impacted somebody is going to be by the outcome of the project, and the other axis is what kind of voice they have in the community, right? So some people, have a very large voice in the community, right? We're going to hear their input. So for example, I have a large voice in this project.
Sure.
I have a very low impact. My life is not going to be impacted, really, in the long run by what this park looks like. Somebody who's renting an apartment next to this park might be highly impacted, but they might not have a large voice in this process. So we're trying to understand who are those folks who are going to be heavily impacted and whose voices we need to seek out so that we're hearing them. So that's kind of how we're defining key stakeholder.
Okay, and you're still figuring those key stakeholders out, right?
We actually did review that in the meeting before this today, so we do have those identified for each site.
Excellent.
Can I suggest one? Oh, sorry.
Nope.
Go ahead.
You go.
You sure? Okay.
All you.
Can I just suggest one group for the potential gap in representation? I would say older adults. So I think especially the folks who live in care settings in the downtown area, so Polar Ridge, but also just, in my community near Casey Lake Park, there's a lot of older adults who maybe can't get out and use the parks as often, but especially in the warmer months, they do.
Yeah.
And so making sure we hear their voices.
That's a really great point. I will say, generally speaking, in community engagement, older adults tend to have a slightly disproportionate response, actually, because essentially a lot of folks who are retired have more free time to contribute their opinions. So it's generally a little bit less of a concern. We are, however, very aware of that for North St. Paul and have called out the Oak Hill Senior Housing for the passive park, since it's right down the street. And then, like you said, the kind of adjacent to downtown groups as well.
Polar Ridge was listed too, one of those.
I'll ditto that because our community is strongly populated with baby boom, is that right? Generation?
Yep.
Yep.
And we're, all the content from our meetings and the outcome, the notes are shared with the city. And I'm not sure what your distribution list is, Sarah, but it might, based on the comments and questions, it would probably make sense to distribute it openly. And I know they're available online and things like that, so the matrix, kind of some of the outcomes of the working session and summaries are all documented in there.
Fantastic.
They had some really great slides about demographics, and I think what would surprise you more is the amount of low-income young adults without kids that we actually don't hear voices from more so than those others. So I think it'll be great that they're kind of focusing on all different aspects to get every voice.
it gets to that, I think, immediate and long-term piece, right? And there's a large immediate need for, spaces that serve seniors, and then there's also kind of this coming wave of young folks that are.
What's very apparent is diversity is not just ethnicity, it's age, it's ability, that the one method of engagement, just like the survey that was done last summer, and we have is one piece of the engagement strategy. So,
So yeah, we're building on all of that information, just like we're building on the master plan, and then kind of supplementing it to keep getting stronger with every one of these you all do.
I will say it's really admirable how all of these decisions are really data-driven. From the workshop before, like, they were showing us maps of national standards and specific to our community. So I heard that you're gonna make that accessible to all of us, but it's all founded in, like, the data and research, why they're choosing to move forward the way they are.
Right.
Is there a structural, or is there a design for progressive yet? Or are we ahead of that on our agenda? As far as what they're gonna try and turn it into?
the design,
Yeah,
That will be it next month.
next month.
okay,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Because I'm wondering if community garden would be a possibility, because we've got a lot of people that have asked about that. We've been
Yep.
kind of trying to figure out where.
It's on our list.
Yeah, it was
Good.
discussed.
Good.
I could see that at the passive park, or the passive park, or did you say McKnight?
No, I was in pocket.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
so,
we've got options.
yeah,
Okay,
lots
good,
of options,
good.
lots of options.
Great
More
job.
excitement to come, right?
Yes, exactly. Thank you all.
Anybody else?
Thank
Oh, I was gonna turn in my homework.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I didn't do it.
If everybody could pass it to the end of the row.
It's true. You told me to do it, so I was trying.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you,
all.
guys.
Thank you, have a great day. All right. Dan, you're up, please.
As you know me, I always go off script.
It's that time of year again.
Thank you.
Look at
There's a lot of the information that was in your package, but
Thank you.
updating some of the information because we're in a
Thank
changing
you.
environment as we're working through the budget process. Well, Chair and Commission members, I thank you very much for allowing me some time to present some information to you, and hopefully it'll spur on some questions, and I can give you some answers to that. For those who know me, there's a lot of familiar faces, but there's a lot of new faces that are a part of the Park Commission, Park and Rec Commission. My name is Dan Winnick. I'm the Finance Director for the City of North St. Paul. Love this city. First of all, I kind of want to thank everybody. I've been here in the past. I want to thank all of the members for you volunteering your time to be a part of this commission, because the parks are a huge part of the city. And there's something that is a valuable asset for the city and for the residents that are here. And it's very important that you have a voice and that you're a part of our budget process. There's operational side to it, there's a capital side to it. And so we're going to I'm just going to give kind of a high-level overview. One of the components to it is that most of our commissions really don't have the authority actually to spend dollars. And so that's kind of one of the slides that I'm going to talk about. It has to be a staff member that actually spends dollars. You can definitely make recommendations, make sure that we get it funding included in the budget. Tonight, I'm going to kind of just go over on the agenda, overview of spending. Kind of want to show everybody here where we are right now with the 2025 proposed levy that our city council is struggling with. The park and recreation funding on an operational side to it, and then on a capital side to it, and then show you what the 24 to 33 CIP plan was and what currently is in the 25 to 34. The CIP plan itself will be starting to be presented to city council, so there's time for changes in October. So there still are time for some changes that could be done to that CIP. Again, everything is finalized in December. As far as the levy is concerned, we do need to certify that. On September 17th, the city council will be certifying their maximum tax levy. We need to certify that to Ramsey County by September 30th. So they'll be doing that by resolution. What it means is a maximum, we can still bring it down. We just can't go above that maximum levy. And then time for some questions and some discussion, and you can interrupt me at any point in time if there's questions. There's no problem with that. Kind of just an overview of the spending. All expenditures from the city must be for a public purpose. All expenditures must be made by a city employee. All expenditures must be approved by a department head. All expenditures must follow the city's purchasing policy. All expenditures must be from an approved budget. All budgets must be approved by the city council, and all amendments to the budget must be approved by the city council. Kind of just a quick high level of kind of the authorities. There's obviously the purchasing policy has a lot of what you can do and what you can't do within there, and that's really for staff to be aware of and to follow. This is where we're at right now with the 2025 proposed levy. We have 3 jurisdictions, taxing authorities, the city, HRA, and EDA. Combined, we're at 9.88% levy increase. Not great news for where we're standing at. We've got some good news, which will be shared with City Council coming on September 3rd. A lot of it, what I've been telling City Council about for a number of years, is called the fiscal disparities. The city of North St. Paul is considered a winner. What that means is that we actually get dollars from a shared pool that actually drops down the amount that we actually levy that actually goes on to the tax bills of our residents. From one year to the next year, from pay 24 to pay 25, we've increased $230,000 in our fiscal disparities, which is significant dollars when we look at it, because right now, for every $71,000, that's a 1% levy increase, to kind of give a framework to kind of think about. We're also going to go tonight, we're just going to take a quick look at what is included in the operating funds. For the parks, there's in the general fund, there's the parks budget, there's a recreation budget, and then there's a building maintenance fund. So the combination of these three operating budgets is what takes care of all of the maintenance, ongoing day-to-day maintenance of the parks and their facilities. Does not include major improvements. That becomes part of your CIP that we'll talk about a little bit later. But that includes the labor for, that's a part of attributed, part of our public works staff that's mowing the lawns of the parks. It's all of the maintenance. You'll see the parks is a decent-sized budget. Recreation is very little. And then you'll see where the building maintenance, and that's, cleaning up after events that are held in Housie Park or that they're held at Casey Lake. So in a way to kind of look at this, all of the expenditures for the day-to-day type of operation for the parks and recreation is covered by these three. All of the revenue gets to go directly to the park fund. No expenditures for any of this comes out of the park fund. Park fund's a capital fund, and so you're accumulating money in there to help with CIP with your CIP plan. So you just heard HGA go through talking about they're doing a study of 3 parks. Anything that's going to come out into the future of that would have to come out from a capital, come out off of your capital plan. So eventually, when they're done with that, that needs to be incorporated in that CIP plan. Your funding sources are either going to be the Park Dedication Fund or the Park Fund, and we'll kind of touch on those in a little while. So right now, from the budgetary standpoint, basically all of our general fund budgets, really the biggest impact that's hitting them is personnel costs. I have a cost of living increase that's incorporated into all of our budgets. I'm not allowed to tell you what that cost of living increase is because we are under union negotiations with each and every one of our unions at this point in time. So at this point in time, City Council doesn't even know what I have in the budget. So that's scary. If it's not high enough, then it's another impact that's going to happen, another part of that levy increase, that could potentially happen. However, we won't have that information at the time that we certify our maximum levy. The rest of the budgets, when you start to look at your supply lines, your contractual services, capital, all of that in our general fund has basically remained pretty stagnant. I think overall, we've got like about a 1% increase. So what's driving that 9.88% increase that you saw on the overall levy is really coming personnel costs. It's coming that we've made the movement to start helping fund our infrastructure, our streets. This year, it was approved by City Council that we have a 2% levy increase put in to help fund streets. In other words, I want to start to move ourselves to a cash basis versus a bond basis. Because if we do bonding forever and ever, we're just going to pay more and more and more. Rule of thumb that I look at it is that if I go out and bond $1 million at a 5% interest for 20 years, I'm going to be making $80,000 bond payments. Over 20 years, that's $1.6 million. That's $1 million that I got today, and I'm going to pay 1.6 over time. If I can pay that $1 million, I'm going to come further ahead. Same thing as your mortgage or anything else that you deal with. So we're trying to move ourselves into a better financial picture. Part of how that happens is planning. And since the time that I started in the city of North St. Paul a little over 3 years ago, we didn't have 10-year financial plans. We do today. We didn't have 10-year capital plans. We do today. There's some areas that need to be improved upon. One of those is our facility assessment, which we have a contract and we have a vendor who's working on that. We should be able to get that final report shortly. That'll be rolled in and incorporated into our CIP plan. My ask of this commission is to make sure that what you have in your park plan is what you really want and what you need. And as soon as reports come in, that it gets put into our CIP. Now, your venue for doing that is going to be going through, unfortunately, Sarah or Riley, the Community Development Director, and then they'll end up giving it to me. I can't suggest or come up with some sort of a funding source and present that in front of City Council unless we have the needs and the costs identified. And so far, what you're going to see later on here on your plan, we do have enough money to cover that. And part of that is, again, driving that 9.88 is that started this year that City Council had approved not only that 2% for streets, but a 1% to be split 0.55% going to parks, 0.44% going to facilities. I've also have a request as an additional option for the City Council to consider to raise those each up an additional percent. And then I have some ways of cutting the levy down some. So those are still out on the table. Again, our budget's a work in progress. We haven't, City Council hasn't made any final decisions, but I do want you to know where we're standing at this point in time. You can see what's in the general fund parks. Again, the recreation is a very small budget. It's only approximately $40,000. It's pretty much the same as it was in this current year in 2024. Not a lot of change in that, actually. it decreases 3%. Building maintenance, again, that one is seeing an increase, and it's really starting to get based upon the actuals of 2023. We're seeing our facilities starting to age, so there's more maintenance costs that are associated with that. That one's, raised 24% from 2020. Yes, sir.
Where is the money for Casey Lake each year? Is that in this piece? Or is that
For Casey Lake,
pay the revenue to pay for
bond?
the bond? Yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
no, it's not in here.
Okay.
It actually, there's numerous funds that
That's fine.
the city has, but for those who aren't aware of that, what the city has been doing traditionally is that we get local government aid. We get about $1,650,000 in local government aid. It's going to stay the same, and paid 25, went up a couple $1,000. $100,000 of that local government aid goes to the park fund. And then $65,000 of that is then transferred to the debt to pay for the portion of the Casey Lake. And so, no, it's not in the operating, it's actually in a debt fund.
Thank you.
And then we have the capital budgets that pertain to the parks, and there's two of them. There's a park dedication fund, and that one by statute has restrictions. And it says it must be used only for the acquisition and development or improvement of parks, recreational facilities, playgrounds, trails, wetlands, or open space based on the approved park systems plan. Cash payments must not be used on ongoing operation or maintenance of parks, recreational facilities, playgrounds, trails, wetlands, or open space. And then there's the park fund that I kind of mentioned before. Sarah was kind enough to give me a little bit of heads up that there's been a little bit of a discussion on that park dedication fund. And obviously, and rightfully so, I'll call it more angst that there was a development that was done in the city a number of years back that did not pay the park dedication fee to that. Like you to know that last Tuesday, in a workshop, we had the developer on that project in front of City Council, heard their story. I've come up with a solution to be able to make the park dedication whole of that park dedication fee. There happens to be some funds that are still left in the bond issuance for that project. And so what we need is that we need an agreement or an amendment to that development, allowing the city to spend that money, and then it would be transferred to the park dedication fund one way or the other. So I think that the sum came to about $80,000. So I have $77,000 left in the bond, so I'll find another three. We're making it whole. But I wanted you to know that is going to be happening, because that's the right thing. We shouldn't set a precedent that's against our policies. And so City Council was very open to that, and they wanted to rectify that and make it. So it was good to have that discussion. I got to give a lot of thanks for the developer, because unfortunately there were some agreements that were made that weren't documented. But I think we can correct that, and many things have changed in our organization here that stuff doesn't happen anymore. So I just kind of gave just a quick little balance sheet of harder than heck to read of where you're at with that park dedication fund. Right now you have cash in a fund balance of about $352,000. That's not including that $80,000 that would go into there. Basically there's been, there's been no expenditures out of the park dedication, and there are no expenditures planned for the next 10 years when we go to the CIP. So, I mean, that's an avenue to utilize. Last year, we did have our capital improvement plan for 2024 that was going to fund some money for the Housie Park. But I have to thank Sarah. She gave a lot of good arguments to why we shouldn't utilize that park dedication fund. And as I promised, I would review it the next morning. And I absolutely agreed with you. And so we didn't fund it from the Park Dedication Fund.
Thank you for
We
that.
fund it. So I just had to find the documentation and go through that stuff. And you were spot on. So,
Good job, Sarah.
yeah. So she did an excellent job.
Sure, as an accountant, from fashion design, my fashion designing career comes out.
Can you repeat what you said about the no plans for 10 years? I missed what you said.
Well, the CIP plan is a 10-year plan right now. Right now, we have nothing earmarked to be funded from the Park Dedication Fund.
For the city, for the,
Yeah, yes.
Copy,
Yeah,
okay.
part of that capital improvement plan.
Okay.
Everything right now is being funded out of your other funding source, the Park Fund.
thank you.
And the Park Fund right now has a cash of $507,000, but has a fund balance of $484,000.
The 484 is after the Housing Park and the 2024 expenditures, is that right?
Pretty much, not all of,
Okay.
I think this actually may have, this is probably pretty close to it. With all of the expenditures, Housing Park hasn't been fully paid for.
Okay.
But I think their first progress payment was pretty much the amount that was going to be paid from the Park Fund, and the rest of it is grant funding.
Okay, cool.
So this is our current bottom line, and we're waiting for that 80,000.
Yeah,
So we will
no,
have-
That was one, the other one, that Park.
Oh, thank you. Got it.
Dedication fund.
Perfect, thank you.
So you will receive an additional $50,000 when local government aid comes. Local government aid comes twice a year, usually midpoint of the year and at the end of the year.
Okay.
So then that'll give you that full $100,000. The transfer of the $65,000 has already been done. Because bond payments are due earlier in the year.
Which one was the bottom line, the 484?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So this was what was presented and adopted for the 24-23 10-year period for the capital improvement plan for Park and Rec. All of it, again, was being funded from the Park Fund. And you can see the number of different plans. A number of these studies have been, I think I was going to say more or less, I would say postponed or pushed off. Part of it's due to the turnover in staff of the community development director. So Riley's kind of adjusted some of those, and we'll be hitting those, I think, starting next year, as he gets his feet on the ground to get an understanding of everything that's happening. So there's some of those projects haven't been done at this point in time. And then the next slide shows what we currently have in the CIP for the next 10 years. And again, that's where my encouragement to this, commission is to be able to go through here and to make sure that it's comprehensive and that it has everything that you're planning on doing for the next 10 years. And again, doesn't mean that's it. You've said it. That's all you get for the next 10 years. It's a living document. It's going to change over time. But the closer we can get to a 10-year look, then that allows me the ability to throw it into a 10-year financial plan. If we can't afford it with the funding sources that we currently have, then I go to our wonderful city council and I come up with a plan of trying to get additional funding sources from them. And the truth is, they have been very, very supportive in my time here to making sure that those things happen. But you can't have an ask if I don't know what's needed. So that's really my ask from you on the CIP, is to really look through, make sure it's encompassing what you're thinking that's going to happen or you're going to do, even if you don't have a concrete estimate, which I'm not holding you to, but to make sure that it's on the radar screen with some sort of rough estimate. Like to have at least the first couple of years to be pretty close, within tolerance of 10 to 20%. After that, it's anybody's guess. We usually use a conservative 2.5% cost inflationary, and you know that in the last few years, that 2.5 would have never covered anything. But that's kind of how our basis to do that in looking at that part to it. And then as far as if there's other operational needs, again, in the 3 operational budgets that we have, it's really covering the day-to-day stuff. There may be something else that, that the Park Commission is interested in doing. We do have an event fund. I don't know exactly what has been included as far as items within that budget. That'll be something that'll be being presented here coming up again, beginning, October, November timeframe. But there's bottom line is there's an opportunity that if there's some park events that you're looking for that need funding, we still have time to get that onto the table because that's a different fund component, and that does have some money that's available in there. So with that, I'm open for questions, discussion. Did I make any sense whatsoever?
Phenomenal report, I'll tell you that.
Pardon?
Phenomenal report, thank you.
Yes.
Dan always does a good job. Your numbers, your numbers.
Thank you
Kinda
for all your hard work
that's
on that.
kinda scary.
Remedying numbers and finding our SGA money.
On your budgets here, for instance, I didn't see anything in here for Southwood Nature Preserve. Is that because we didn't mention much in our master plan, or how are you coming up with these amounts in the timelines for some of these parks?
And we're talking about the CIP?
Yeah, the CIP.
Yeah. So, again, Finance Department does not put in the requests. Our responsibility is we compile the information and put it. So many of these requests were all from, I'm going to say, from the prior community development director.
And in tandem with
Park-
Public Works.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I specifically can't answer that question, but I certainly can ask around and get an.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure how they came up with the parks and the timelines, if they were kind of going off some of our master plan that we kind of had put forward to city council, or if it was, I don't know how they came up with certain parks timelines for money's expense. And as I look through here, it doesn't really cover all the parks that we do have. So, and I want to know, being this is with the CIP, there's going to be some improvements on some of our parks that I didn't see listed here, so.
Which is a
And
valid
that's-
point that you're
Yep.
saying. And
Right.
that's where, by looking at this, it's on the commission to say, all right, I don't see Dorothy Park, I don't see Southwood Park on here. What are some of our needs in the next 10 years?
Right.
That we can tend to? That's what council is looking for you to bring to our plate, is to say, hey, we're looking at having, I'm using this as an example, public example here, we're looking at getting rid of some of the invasives at Southwood. So
Yes.
what does that look like for getting rid of invasives? Does that mean bringing in goats to help get rid of that naturally? Does that mean chemicals, whatever that looks like? Obviously, I'm just throwing this out as an example. But that said, that needs to be placed in here. So if that's a $70,000 plan, we need to plan for that to be $70,000, whether we're gonna divvy up that money based on 3 years, what does that look like? That stuff needs to be in here. That's the stuff that we should be talking about in these commission meetings.
Right.
So I know, and anyone up there, correct me if I'm wrong, Brandy had brought it to everyone's attention in the spring. Is there anything you guys want to, what are the plans for next year? What kind of events are we gonna have next year? What does that look like? She didn't really open it up significantly regarding how should we take care of some of these things in our, in the CIP. So that's definitely something that we're gonna want to, address immediately. If you see this, and we're looking at this right now, this is an opportune time to say, hey, all right, I wanna see this for 2025. I know it's not in here, but this is really, really important to our commission, that council puts this in here for next year. So then we know, okay, where can we cut? Where can we, for lack of better words, kind of push money towards to make sure that if Parks and Rec hasn't asked for anything for a while, we need to get on top of this. This is their number one concern for next year.
And the deadline for that is,
So is it now? No. December?
Well,
Other than that.
yeah, we're going to start to review the CIP in October.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
so
you've
is it
got,
possible in the, like, September meeting that we could set aside time to maybe go through those line by line? I don't feel like we have done that, maybe because we've cut some meetings short, so we haven't had a full quorum in a while. I think that would be a good exercise, just, I know we've talked about events, but we haven't specifically talked about any park improvements, and I think it might be good to even set aside some for McKnight, knowing that could be a big project next year.
May I also suggest a potential, I mean, council's finding this right now, we're having some special meetings around budget, and we just don't have, we haven't had the time to get into them. And then we're finding meetings like in August, we had to cancel, or not cancel, but because of National Night Out. And then in November, we have elections, so we're missing 2 meetings right there. So I don't know if you would all be up for a special meeting to be called to have this as well, to be able to bring something, if you have something, like Dave said, on your mind, hey, nothing for Southwood. I'm using you as an example, Dave, just because of that, but there's something financially that, like, all right, this is what we want to put on, like Dan said. This is an opportune time, because right now, all of the departments we're meeting with right now to see what they're requesting, and then Dan will present all of that to
Can I ask a clarifying question? So how does what you're saying, Cassidy, parallel the work that we're doing with HGA?
it's a tough one. Obviously, just from the presentation that HGA has just given, they're just in the beginning, you know, first third of their whole development. You know, so the question that you've got to ask is, at least that I would ask, is there really going to be something that's going to be done in 2025? The answer would be partially yes. That would be the next phase of, I think, their contract that was given to actually do the design, and come up with costs.
I think the initial plan was that was gonna be done in the winter, so things could be reacted by the spring, but the problem is we don't know a rough budget for that. So that's what I'd want to talk about with the commission, and potentially, if we're talking about those completely new spaces, that would be a great space to use that park dedication fund, which we have a large amount of money in that to use, and if we're talking about creating a whole new space, even if, I don't want to miss the window to approve, even if we go and ask for too much, even to have the conversation of like, if we can roll, could we?
Let me answer your question a little bit different, and I think you'll be pleased with this. Even though it doesn't get approved on the CIP at this point in time, let's say December comes and goes, comes into February, and you now have information, and I want to go and spend $500,000 to take care of something. I've got the money for it. You can always take that item to city council.
Okay.
It's basically, you
Kind of
know,
what we used to do, right? We kind
Yeah.
of rolled it, okay.
yeah, you can,
This
you
is just
can
more
do it at
long-term
any point in
planning.
time.
Yeah, but you'll want to have it long-term planning too. I mean, I know that another council member previous to me sitting on the commission, obviously would like to see some sort of plan. Like, what if we're meeting with them, we have HGA here.
Yeah.
What does that look like moving on for the next 5 years? We'll just use that. Why is it, the number one question will be, why isn't that in the CIP?
Okay.
So as I'm looking here, I'm looking at, we're visiting Midnight's in here, but the passive park, the pocket park, those aren't in here. So if we're looking at still having some sort of downtown park, we should probably start setting aside something financially
Okay.
towards that. What that looks like, that's where I would lead to Dan and Sarah for, and actually Riley too. How much should we put away for that right now and just continue to designate dollars so we really get a grasp on what we're gonna do? Because it's nice to have a park dedication plan. We know that that's specific to some, a specific something, because you can't spend it for anything else but that. But we don't want to tap it either, right? So
Right.
what does it look like moving forward? How do you divvy up all those money, those dollars for 10 years?
So is part of what city council is looking for is instead of having a large pot of money that the park commission knows what we're going to do with it in the future, we say this is what we're doing with it in the future, even if it's gonna change?
Correct, because it's a living, like Dan said, it's a living document. So you say that in the McKnight, we'll say McKnight Field, you're gonna put, for 2025, there's $500,000 in there for the parking lot itself. You know what, I don't know if we should do the parking lot right now.
I
Maybe we
agree.
push that
It was
out.
my question.
Like, well, I'm using this as an example, right?
Right.
And you look at it and you're like, maybe we shouldn't do that right now. Let's hold off on the $500 and kick the can down the road, right? You don't always want to kick the can down the road, but you at least have that it's planned, but you're not gonna do it in 2025. So that's where this is gonna change. It's just like our city CIP, full CIP, it all changes. You know, the roof is probably, we'll say we're planning for the roof here at City Hall, and we're not gonna get it redone for another 3 years. But oh, guess what just happened? We need to get it done now. That's where we're gonna have to pull money from another place to say, all right, instead of doing, you know, Public Works roof this year, we have to do City Hall, so we're gonna take money from Public Works, even though it's planned, and then see where we can fund in 3 years, we'll do Public Works. You know, it's just kind of, that's, Dan, please correct me if I'm wrong, but in a
No,
nutshell, that's kind of what this document is for.
Yeah, no, I think your explanation is very good. I just want to add a couple of things. I look at things a little bit different.
Hey, I'm okay with that.
To me, I want you to put your first blush is, I'm going to call it your wish list of needs that you see
Right.
that are needed. Okay? That's the first look. Because then I can take that, I can throw that into a financial plan, resources that are available, whether it's park dedication, park fund, or some other funding source. And I can say, plus, there's 0.55 of a levy increase. I can say, can you make that? I think in your packet, it had a financial plan that was done last year. What you had on your CIP, you basically just using the park fund, you basically, in the new levy, you just had enough money. So in other words, you couldn't add any other projects. Then, if that's the reality, then you have to do what Councilmember Schwer said. Now I'm gonna have to juggle things around. I'm gonna have to prioritize, and I'm gonna have to say, okay, I'm not gonna do the McKnight Field. I'm gonna end up having to do something else. Me, I wanna see that first look at what you truly believe is in the best interest of our residents and that are going to be the right thing for our park system. So I want you to look at it that way. The reason for that is because that's where then I can say, hey, 0.55 isn't going to be enough. We need to raise that to 1.55. And I have a basis to say to City Council, here it is. This is our need. We haven't been taking care of, again, parks are an infrastructure.
Right.
We haven't been taking care of those. This is what we need to do. Or is City Council open to making a funding transfer from maybe one of our enterprise funds? It's not unheard of. The City Council did it this past year to get going on our street project, because this was the first year of us increasing that 2% levy dedicated to streets. They transferred $1.1 million from our electric fund. So it can happen, but it can't happen unless you have kind of a plan that's looking at it. Then we work together and massage it. And that's where then, she already jumps down all the way down to the bottom line. That's where then we have to make some trade-offs on priorities, because then the reality of, okay, this is all that the city can truly afford.
So like Sarah said, we need to pick a month. I agree with you on
Well,
September.
We should do
if
some
Cassidy's
workshops.
thinking that next month is too far out to make it, I don't want to miss the option of spending money in 2025 when we can now. If that means having a meeting before the next park council meeting, I'd rather do that and then come prepared to just talk on this subject. But if it's something that we're okay to wait, we could dedicate that and spend more time. But I'm open. I know this is really important, and I'm glad it came up, but.
I would just like to point out too, I think it'd be really crucial to have Riley at our next meeting.
I'm gonna actually ask you,
Yeah.
Riley, have Riley come there.
And I also think, while a special meeting could be really helpful too, I think also taking the time for each of you to really assess what you think, even at your own parks that you're the representatives of, what may or may not be needed, even do some research on some basic costs of that. I do think it'll take some time from each of you as well. So maybe we do wait until that September meeting.
Okay.
And if Riley's there, he can quickly turn that around and work with Dan on that as well. So that's what I would propose, but we can do whatever we think is necessary.
What do we want to do?
I would like to see us set up some kind of a workshop so we can sit down around the table and kind of look at everything that we have in front of us and make some rash judgments on where we want to see true improvements going forward. Because we do know, I mean, it'd be senseless, being we're going to develop, I'm going to use McKnight Fields, to put in a new parking lot, and that may not even go with our new plans from HGA.
Well, I think they're saying we just need to scrub this, because I think those plans were made a long time
But if we
ago.
don't, Sarah, if we don't look at what they're earmarking, we could say, well, we'd rather have that.
That's what we're gonna do, though.
That's why I say a workshop where we could sit down and just kind of have this kind of conversation.
So keep in mind, so, obviously it's August.
Yeah.
And we're starting to, we really, Dan, it's been, 2 months that, in a couple of meetings, we've been just touching budget. So say, you have, just for example, you don't have to get it all done this
No.
year. Early next year, you can start putting it on the agenda. Let's talk about these things for 2026. It seems so far out, but it really isn't in the grand.
Well, and we
No,
spent all
it's-
that time
do.
in our park plan that talks through, we all agreed as a park commission on the 3, 5, 10, 20-year plan for
Yeah.
things. I think we all need to take our time to go back, look at that, that's the factual document. When you say rash, that makes me a little worried, because I know from previous council members on this commission, they're not gonna be okay with someone just throwing a bunch of things in that's not part of the park plan. So I think we need to revisit that, visit the parks that we're commissions of and say, like Silver Lake's a good example, like we had that in the budget to replace that playground at 20 years. 20 years is gonna be here in 2 years.
Yeah.
So I think using what we've already built that says, okay, 3 years we were doing McKnight, like we're already in the McKnight window now, like let's designate money for it. We had already talked about, we had talked about other places, and then like those numbers there, we can revisit and say, well, we're not gonna do the parking lot because we wanna see how the whole facility shakes out, and that parking lot may now become a who know what, depending on, so.
I agree. I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because if we look back 2 years, the request from council has been the same thing. We want a plan before you spend money, and we have given plans, and we still haven't been able to
we
spend
have-
money. And we have an entire, outline of those plans already. So if it's as simple as revisiting the documents that we have put
Rescinding
so
everybody
much
this
work
today.
into already and putting them on a line item for you, that's easy enough to do in a meeting. It's hard to make special workshops happen. And so if we can dedicate our next meeting to focusing on that, we have the tools at our disposal to not have it be a 2-3 hour discussion.
Sarah, we each have the physical document that you're
I
holding.
don't know that
That's the
everybody
park plan.
does, because Dave and Ben wouldn't have been
Oh,
here when we
right,
got this
right.
hefty guy, but I will tell you that just in the short-term plan, Rotary signs, Housy Park pickleball courts, McKnight and downtown master plan, we're actually already in a lot of these short-term. So, but I do think it's important, because we spent a lot of time building this
We
document.
did, we did.
Yeah.
And,
Sarah, can you see that Dave and Ben gets a copy of that? Thank you.
And then I think we go from there, and like you said, Dave, if you feel like Southwood isn't on here and it needs to be consideration, then I think that's where he's saying this is a living document, and hey, we have a turtle problem, we need to address this, I think that's where turtle problem, Ninja Turtle problem.
All right.
Yeah.
What do we want to do in September?
I think what she said is the right thing. You have a plan. Make sure that it's in your CIP. Unfortunately, David, you're at a disadvantage. You don't have that plan, so you've got to get that and go through it and make sure that, and that's where then you're going to have a good dialogue to be able to decide, okay, yeah, I agree with what this report has said, and we should move forward with that. And again, we need to get that so it's on the CIP. An answer to why it's not. You've got a document like that, and I've asked for a copy of that. It should be in our CIP.
Yes.
Sarah, you were going to email that that section of the big document. Could you do it to all of us? So
Yeah.
that it's just top of
Page
top of
55.
the email list and,
55 is the, like,
Okay.
table of
I
contents.
didn't bring my main one.
Then it goes into more detail after that.
Okay.
All right, what do we want to do for September with the park?
I think if you guys are all up for it, what I can do is just, HGA will be back to do a presentation. It'll be short again, 15, 20 minutes, and then we can dedicate the rest of the time. Invite Riley to come and propose our ideas. He can work through them with you guys as well, if that works.
Sounds good.
Yep, and the agreement is that we come in having the park improvement plan documents that you included fresh in our mind, as well as taking the time to assess the parks that we are, kind of responsible for any like short-term things, like, hey, we need to get this done within the next year.
Yes.
So if all of us bring all of that information together, consult with Riley, consult with, I'm not sure if you're here or not.
If
What,
people want me to be here,
we consult, we
Or Dan, don't make
consult
them
with
come
our
to another
stakeholders,
evening.
the people
Yeah.
that we need to, and then we can get you your line item budgets.
well, I'm impressed.
So can I say one thing? So keep in mind, like, the little things.
Yep.
So we'll use, one of the parks, like, if there's a swing broken, Public Works is just gonna go buy a new swing. If it's a smaller piece of equipment, Public Works is gonna take care of that piece of equipment. Anything that's beyond, what's the dollar amount that,
You know, I like to look at anything beyond $25,000.
Okay.
Really, being addressed in your CIP.
Okay.
How long procedurally would you like to discuss this? If you want it to go on and go on, I'll run the meeting and let it go and go. Otherwise, I need to get a time frame so I can kind of keep steering the meeting
Oh, for September.
into September, so we don't end up going 2-3 hours or whatever it may be.
I think maybe the best way to do that is give each commission member a set amount of time to propose address their parks or any ideas they have. So one or two commissioners, and I can be guilty, don't take up like an hour of, you know what I mean? Like, almost like public forum, give everyone their 10 minutes. And then X amount of time, like, I don't want to say let's all leave at 8 when we're not going to finish that, but none of us want to be here till 10. So I think if there's a way for you guys to lay out rules and like everybody gets X amount of time and then we discuss it for X amount of time and then we come to a conclusion in X amount of time, I think would be the most efficient use of our time.
I mean, it's something to consider too. And there's nights that I don't anticipate being here till 10, and then there are. And it's not that I want to be, but topics like this and being on a commission and serving on council, however that looks, Dan as well, Sarah, they spend 8 hours here. Now you got Dan that's here just as
Yep.
long. So I understand that all this is volunteer. It's volunteer for me as well. I was elected. There might be in one night or one meeting a month that you're gonna be here a little bit later.
Yeah.
Something to propose.
I don't mind that either. I just think sometimes we need parameters or things.
Yeah.
Some
That-
conversations go longer than they should.
Laura, you want to be involved with Sarah and I on setting the guidelines, or do you just want Sarah? and
I would just let Sarah use her discretion to know, and I mean that for like individual contribution and then, I'm just using it as a guideline to hold.
Yeah, because
so
Sarah and I
that-
were going to meet, but Laura, you want to be involved in that too?
No, I'm fine, I'm
Okay.
fine with you all.
Okay.
Can we I just want to triple check, does everybody know what parks they oversee?
I think Sarah
Because
put
we
it in the
switched it,
agenda.
we
I
switched
saw
it.
in here.
Sarah, can you send us an email?
It's the third page.
Got it?
It's the third page. in.
My computer
Yeah,
died.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
So
wondering if
I have
Dorothy
a
is
question on, for instance, Lori and I are both on McKnight Fields. And being we're trying to redevelop that, how do we want us to proceed with that? Because we don't know what the future planning may be on that.
So you won't say anything, because you'll wait. I mean,
We'll
that's
just-
something that you're just gonna have to wait till HGA presents.
Right.
Because right now, that's a pending park, right? So there's.
Well, it's an existing park. I mean, we want to put $500,000 into a parking lot, which we may not,
No.
No,
we
no,
wanna-
we don't.
That's
right,
not-
but you know what I'm saying? Right now, that's what it says
We want
on
to
the budget.
bring it into the
Right.
next few years. If
Right.
McKnight, we can just present it as, well, we're gonna look at McKnight in a year or so and figure that out, and boom, that's what it is. Because if we get into a discussion about long-term projects, and we're not gonna have time to do short-term
We
projects.
don't have the other two parks that we're trying to develop on our list
And
either.
that's where you'll talk about it
Right.
next meeting.
Yep.
And say, I'd like to see Southwood, I'd like to see Passive, I'd like to see the Pocket Park on.
Right.
Again, that $500,000 you see right under the parking lot.
I'm just
that doesn't
using it.
matter.
I'm just using that for an example,
Yeah.
so.
Sarah, can you
Ingrid?
add Dorothy Park for me too? Because it's Silver Lake and Dorothy for me.
Oh, sure. Yes, I have that on my master list, but I
Okay.
can
Thanks.
update that, yes.
I think I have Country Club Park too. I don't know if that's on there or not. Okay.
I would just like to ask if there's any other questions or comments for Dan, so we can let him go.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
So I have to, before I thank everybody, I have to correct Councilmember Schwer. Aren't we, Sarah, aren't we on like 12 hours and 42 minutes for the day so far?
Yeah.
You've earned your cocktail or beverage of
Anytime,
choice.
anytime that you want me to come back, I have no hesitation coming back. This is a wonderful group. Once again, sincerely, I thank you for your time that you're spending here, and obviously, you can see how important this is. And I actually got to give a lot of kudos because you came through something that was like this, and then all of a sudden, you have a plan, a very concrete plan of how you're going to get through this in September. Very impressive.
Well,
Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. You, Cassidy, Sarah, Jill that was here to get us through these last few years, because we're just learning as we go.
Well, we're all doing it together.
And we're all doing this together.
It's team effort.
Yes, yes. All right.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, Park and Open Space Master
Yes.
Plan approval.
Yes, so
Sarah.
we have discussed the master plan a few times here, made all the edits that were requested. Today's goal is to approve, or for you guys to approve a recommendation to send this in front of council. So all the edits have been made that were requested, so this should just be a formal thing. But if there's anything else that you saw in the master plan that needs editing, we can certainly do that. So,
I make a recommendation to approve.
I second.
Okay. Any discussion? Got it, Sarah?
yep.
All in favor, say aye.
I
Aye. All opposed?
need a bell like this stuff.
There, yeah. Oh, that's at the end.
Yeah.
All right, reports from staff. We'll wait till Cassie gets back. Sarah, you got anything?
Yeah, I'll just go quick. Public Works didn't have a lot because they are trying to keep up with mowing, as that's been, and some storm issues recently.
Trees.
So, they've been doing that. The other updates that they gave me were that they got the doors fixed at Casey Lake Park. There were some issues with some broken doors there, in the pavilion itself. And then there's going to be another picnic table permanently installed near, Janie's Playground, that was formerly donated from the family of Cal's Pizza Factory. So there'll be a plaque there as well. That should be coming shortly. That's all I got.
Cassidy?
I know, but what's,
Updates?
Oh my gosh. Did you guys go through updates?
No,
No,
we do
we
you.
haven't, we haven't.
No, I can't, no, because we're, commissions are the next one. You're
I'm processing.
a staff. Okay, I'll come back to you. All right. Let's start with Ingrid.
Oh, yeah, Silver Lake is looking good. I do have a question about, I noticed a couple months ago, the white signs that popped up.
Let's touch base on that. I'll talk with you after.
We'll just talk privately. Okay, yeah, okay,
That'll be part of my updates.
sounds good. Okay.
Any more?
That's-
Anything else?
Let me just travel through the park.
If you got anything else, just call
I
it.
I don't have anything else for Silver.
David?
There's a lot of storm damage in Southwood. There's a couple trees that are actually, they've got one trail right now, the city, the Public Works has completely blocked off from not this last storm, but the storm before. But there are, from the storm we had the other night, there's a couple trees down right in front of the bridge where you go across the creek. So hard to navigate around that. there's a few other newer trees that are also down in Southwood. So I reached out to Ron today, but I called him too late, so I will do a follow-up with him tomorrow morning to see if they can just, if nothing else, go out and chainsaw enough to get the paths open again.
Yeah, is there any safety issues,
Uh,
urgent safety issues?
Nothing, other than where they had that blocked off from the storm prior, yeah, those are, we used to call widow makers, you know, the limbs, they're busted off way at the top of the tree, so they're hanging down, so if somebody were to go underneath them.
I didn't see anything
It could
much
be.
Okay.
There's some other big, like a huge big oak not too far from your house that went down, but it's in the woods. It's
Okay.
not blocking any of the paths and stuff, but it's a huge oak that went down, so, yeah. I mean, that will have to, I'll reach out to the task force to see what their plans are for any of that kind of stuff, but as far as the paths themselves, there's the one for sure that's,
Okay.
you know, 20 minutes, half hour with a chainsaw, clean it all up,
So Dave,
so.
how long has that been sitting there like that?
Excuse me?
That Public Works has blocked that area?
The one that they blocked off has been for a while, but now, since the storm the other night, there's a new one. It's blocking the bridge that takes you across the bridge.
Ron, regarding that. There's a lot of
Yeah.
people that's going through that,
Yeah.
and that one should be, I mean, as a priority, it's, both of them are safety hazards.
Right,
And so that should be brought
yeah.
to attention.
Yeah, I'll be calling Ron in the morning, so,
I'll have Sarah should follow up with that too,
Yeah.
though, as it being more immediate.
yeah.
Anything else, Dave?
Nope, that's all I got.
I have been trying really hard to drive by Northwood and Tower Park frequently because I never see kids there. There just doesn't seem to be children playing there, and I try to go at different times of the day, and it's a puzzle to me. But then all of a sudden, at Northwood, there will be like 20 of them.
Yeah,
So I don't know
I
what,
live right down the street from there.
yeah,
There is a lot of action there, but it's sporadic,
yeah.
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, it is. I actually wondered if it was a church group a couple times because there were a lot of children and a couple adults.
There's a church right back there.
Oh, that's what it is. I wondered. Yeah, yeah. I also just want to, and Tower Park, they both look great. They both look great. But it's the activity that I'm curious about. I'm also curious about at Northwood, does anybody use that baseball field ever?
Yeah, my
Yes.
kids play baseball there.
Do they?
So
Oh,
we were
good.
there, we were there twice a week, every week in the summer, but
Now, still?
we just ended August, beginning of
Okay,
August. So
okay.
probably, as the baseball conversation goes, it's a very short time span that's being used for 2 months, 3 months of the
Yeah.
year.
Well, and I probably am not driving by it at the right time. That's,
I will say, because I coordinate all the ball fields too, that's the only group that uses it. So it's just one group twice a week during the summer.
okay. But it is used, that's the
Yes.
thing. I just want to make one other remark. I don't know who has Housie, but I went to the ribbon cutting and the movie, and it was spectacular. I didn't realize how those movies work. They have the blow-up screen. There must have been 70 or 80 people there. It was just wonderful, just wonderful. So,
And the
That's all I
courts are great,
Ben?
yeah, they're being used tonight when I drove by there.
yeah.
Why are
Ben,
you
go
going to
ahead.
Ben?
Huh?
Why are you going to Ben?
Skip over Laura.
You skipped me and Sarah.
Well, I know, I was
Well, you're
coming back
working
to
for
you
the
and then
Kansas
land
City
on-
Meadow.
Okay,
But we can go to
Keeping
you.
us on our toes.
it's all good.
Go ahead, man.
I actually have a similar question about Casey, so I'm curious if it's not now, that's fine, but if there's data on, because I think there's 5 baseball fields there, 4 baseball fields?
Yes.
How many of those get used?
Very rarely.
Yeah, so,
Yep. The main baseball field, Casey 1 that has the fences gets used the most. And then field 2 gets used a little bit, 3 and 4 never.
yeah, I figured, because my kids like to ride their bikes around that dirt, but there's one field in particular that's very overgrown with weeds and stuff, so I figured that one probably doesn't get used, but
Right.
anyways, I was also at the ribbon cutting. I think I missed the actual ribbon cutting, but I was there after, so it's a great event.
Sarah?
None for me?
Laura?
No.
You did a nice job with Halsey, I'll leave it at that. I have a request from Eric Peterson, which is 26-something Belmont Lane. Eric, He's right next door to me. He wants to know what we're doing with the ash. And I know we got a whole big problem now, but are we doing anything with the ash in Southwood?
I don't know specifically, but I can find out and get back to you.
Thanks. Yep, that'll work.
As far as Southwood, the ash trees, they did pull just this spring, probably 10 trees out of there.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Oh, Cassidy?
Let's circle back on the park times that are listed. Those times, are you aware of why those times were listed?
No, but I guessed that they went up shortly after an evening that I heard a lot of noise.
Correct.
And I thought, I wonder if it has to do with late.
That is on the agenda to discuss park times because of that situation. They are calling them pop-up parties. And now the individuals that are showing up have found that they're coming into our neighborhoods now and having these pop-up parties. Thankfully, the PD is aware of that and they're catching them, but right now we have found that temporary park times was the best way to start getting rid of those.
Okay.
I know that it's gonna be brought, it's gonna circle right back to council on what those park time changes should be. I also think it's pretty important that you guys think about it and we get your buy-in on it before we make any decisions right away. So again, maybe this is another topic, I know we're discussing budget, but maybe come to the next meeting and say, I would like to propose this to council and this is why. You can help us make that decision, not to worry about it.
Yeah, can I just, can you tell me what happened? So it was like a sudden spontaneous party, where, because I heard it, but I didn't see anything that night.
Was that
So,
at
at
Silver Lake?
Silver Lake, yeah.
So they were able to stop that pop-up party. And essentially what people are doing is they're bringing their cars in, they're creating a party, but there was a very large instance that happened in Casey Lake that created this situation. We think I can't say that created. We think that they're the same situation, hence why we created these times. But
Okay.
there was a shooting in Casey Lake in May, Memorial Weekend.
Yeah,
Then this pop-up party at Silver Lake happened, I think it was about 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, and at that point, we were like, we need to do
Yeah,
something
yeah.
now. But moving forward, I think it's really important that you guys have the buy-in on open times and closed park times. And honestly, if you brought that proposal to council, or I brought it, and you say, hey, we're gonna propose, Parks and Rec Commission's proposing, all parks close at 9 or at dusk, or whatever that looks like, then we can move forward. That it would be helpful to have that decision instead of council just making it. But we clearly wanna make it safe for our community members. You guys do too. So on that note, those are the temporary signs for now.
Yeah.
It's being communicated.
okay.
I just want to ask, it isn't the problem that it's a pop-up party, it's a problem that they are causing a problem. I mean, anybody should be able to go there at the spur of the moment and
Right.
have a
It's
gathering.
noise.
Yeah,
Anyone
okay.
can come, obviously, and have a barbecue or whatever they're
Right.
doing, that's great. These pop-up parties are happening later in the evening.
And
Okay,
it-
This isn't like midday. This is,
Oh,
we're
okay.
talking 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Yes.
And it's noise, and it's definitely noise related. It's-
So this isn't,
it's a late party, too late to be, Yeah.
that Silver Lake's a hot spot, but so was,
Mm-hmm.
Casey. So it's individuals from the outside coming in. It's not, it has, from my understanding, don't quote me, it's not been identified, these are North St. Paul residents,
Right.
so.
So my concern is, what happens to the individual who's out there at 10:30 walking their dog? If we say we want to set time for the parks, is there going to be some penalty placed upon a person walking their dog
I don't know.
at 10:30 or 11 o'clock?
I don't know. I can't say, I can't speak to that. Our park hours are posted. The
Right.
temporary ones are posted. They'll be posted online. That individual technically should not be in the park because the park is closed. My assumption would be that if PD were to come by, they'd say, I'm sorry, this park is closed. You'll need to go home at this point. The issue, PD will, I'm again making all the assumption, PD will continue to patrol that park and make sure nobody's there.
Right.
So it's, the park hours are posted, you gotta be out of the park by, well, it's 10 o'clock current, well,
Right,
it was
current.
10 o'clock currently, or 11 o'clock, I think.
11
Used to be
Yeah.
11.
11, excuse me. So
Now it's 10.
10 o'clock. But
10.
that's where I'm going, like, you know our park hours, you can't be here past that time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, the open hours I would maybe argue with, but we'll talk about that later.
yeah.
Because 7 seems kind of late, because a lot of people walk at 6 a.m. or 5:30.
Yeah.
Yeah,
those are
I
things
mean,
that you guys
yeah,
can talk
we can talk about it.
But I know that is a priority of council because of all this stuff that has happened.
Okay.
We don't want it to fall off our plate. We're high in budget season right now, so we're really gonna be driving budget, focusing in on budget, and then any little thing that needs our attention immediately. So I'm leaning on to you guys, and I will also communicate that to, council tomorrow. We have a special meeting that I put it on, I brought it to your guys' attention and asked for some opinions. So they might like me, they might not, sorry.
Okay.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
Dave makes a motion. Anybody second?
I second the motion.
Sue seconds. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed?